The policy of the Gulf states in the Middle East. While some countries shape regional policies in line with the priorities of their international allies, some countries follow their independent policies. It can be said that Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain have a different line from Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman. These countries shape the Middle East policies, especially in line with the regional policies of the United States as well as Israel. On the other hand, it is seen that Qatar and Kuwait pursue a relatively independent policy. Oman has a different line of foreign policy than all these countries. Oman, which is generally free from regional crises and adopts a neutral line against these processes, has also mediated between the conflicting parties in many issues. The policy of the Gulf states during the Iraq-Iran War and the Gulf War. The policies of the Gulf countries towards the Middle East were traditionally non-interventionist and aimed at developing good relations with the countries in the region. However, during the Iraq-Iran War, the Gulf countries needed to position themselves against Iran. They feared that if Iran wins a war over Iraq, Tehran's influence in the region may increase. Gulf countries also took a bold position against Iraq during the Gulf War. Saddam Hussein's attack on Kuwait was a turning point for the actors in the Gulf region. They considered this attack as a direct threat towards them, so they sided with the international coalition against Iraqi forces. How the Gulf states played in the Arab Revolution's process that started in 2011. Gulf countries, directly or indirectly, involved in the revolutionary processes as they tried to prevent developments that may threaten their interests in the region. Countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE were involved in revolutionary processes in Egypt, Libya, and Yemen with the aim of channeling the developments in these countries according to their interests. It has been observed that the primary policy objective of these countries in the revolution processes is the failure of the uprisings that aimed to topple long-time leaders. Therefore, it can be said that Riyadh and Abu Dhabi had a counter-revolutionary behavior towards the Arab revolution's process. Qatar has followed a different line from these countries and generally supported the revolutionary processes. Oman and Kuwait focused on their own internal political developments during the Arab Revolution's period. The response of the Gulf states to the Israel-Palestine conflict. Historically, the Gulf countries have been largely inactive in defending the rights of Palestinians and resolving the Israel-Palestine conflict. Even though none of the Gulf countries have a peace agreement with Israel, they have been reluctant to put pressure on Tel Aviv to stop its aggressive policies against Palestinians. The establishment of Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation did not make any impact on Gulf countries to follow a more aggressive policy towards Israel. Following Egypt's peace agreement with Israel, the attitude of Gulf countries has also changed and became less active. Although they have provided financial assistance to Palestine from time to time, the Gulf countries have not made any visible efforts to prevent Israeli occupation policies. However, it should be emphasized that Qatar and Kuwait have engaged with the issue more than the other Gulf states and tried to put pressure on Israel. The conflict between Iran and the United Arab Emirates over the islands. There have been disputes between two countries over the borders and islands, namely Abu Musa, Greater, and Lesser Tunbs. These conflicts are the legacy of the colonial policies of the British. When the internal politics altered in 1968 and the new British decided to withdraw from the Gulf, it changed the balance of power within the region. Therefore, while leaving the Gulf, Britain also left some chronic problems such as disputes over borders and islands. Following Britain's withdrawal from the Gulf, Iran claimed its sovereignty over the strategically vital islands. Iran invaded the islands unilaterally before the formation of the United Arab Emirates. The Iranian government uses its hard power by deploying military personnel and transferring the equipment to the islands for deterring the United Arab Emirates. The position of Gulf states during the Iran-Iraq War. Gulf states supported the Iraqi regime during the Iraq-Iran War. There were mainly three reasons for that. First reason was the fear of possible increase of Iranian influence in the region in the post-revolution period. As the Iranian Revolution of 1979 made an impact on different groups in the Gulf region, the monarchies were concerned that their citizens would be lured by the revolutionary ideas. Secondly, the Shia population in the Gulf region would be subjected to Iranian influence, which would become a problem for the Gulf countries in the long term. Finally, Iran was also becoming a military power in the region. This has made an additional pressure on the Gulf regimes. The involvement and position of Gulf states in the Yemen conflict. Arab revolutions affected the trajectory of the Yemen conflict. Iranian-backed Houthis have taken control of the revolutionary movement's course. They took the capital city of Yemen, Sana'a. After this move, the Gulf countries led by Saudi Arabia decided to launch a military operation in Yemen. The leading actors in this regard are the UAE and Saudi Arabia. In May 2015, the military operation was launched. Nevertheless, there has been a clash of interest between Saudi Arabia and the UAE over the Yemen conflict. While Saudi Arabia has been seeking to restore the balance of power and place the stability in Yemen, the UAE has not aimed the same thing. In contrast to Saudi Arabia, the UAE has backed the separatist movement in southern Yemen, undermining the territorial integrity of the country. How did the Gulf states position themselves towards the Palestinian-Israeli conflict during Trump's presidency in the U.S.? It can be argued that the Gulf countries did little to contribute to the Palestinian struggle against Israel. Despite their voice of discomfort against the Israeli policies towards Palestine, their efforts were limited. Particularly Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Oman were very careful in not confronting Israel, while Kuwait and Qatar supported the Palestinian rights. This has continued following Donald Trump's election to the U.S. presidency. Most of the Gulf states backed Trump's deal of century, which aims to destroy the Palestinian state and institutionalize Israeli occupation. Kuwait represents an exception in this regard. The political elites have been officially voicing their support for Palestine. Aramco. Saudi Arabian Oil Company, initially Arabian American Oil Company, is the state-owned national oil company which was established in 1933. The company was fully nationalized in 1988 following a royal decree. Saudi Aramco is one of the largest companies in the world by value and yearly turnout. Expatriates in the UAE. The UAE hosts some 8 million expatriates who reside in the country for employment purposes. The Emirati population is around 2 million, which makes about 11% of the total population of the country. Many sectors depend on expatriate workers who come from mostly Asian and Middle Eastern countries. Al Jazeera. The state-owned broadcasting company that was launched in 1996. Its English-language channel is one of the most respected news channels globally. It played a significant role during the Arab revolutions of 2011. Kuwait Investment Authority. The sovereign wealth fund of Kuwait to engage in foreign direct investment of the country. It is the oldest sovereign wealth fund, which was established in 1953. The fund is known for its 1974 purchase of 14% of Mercedes's shares. Current share of Kuwait Investment Authority in Daimler is 6.8%. The United Arab Emirates is composed of 7 emirates with various dimensions. In 1971, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Al Fujairah, Al Kuwain and Yemen founded the federation, and Ras Al Khaimah joined the federation 1 year later. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Al Fujairah, Al Kuwain, Yemen, Ras Al Khaimah. United Arab Emirates has been militarily engaged in the Yemen conflict together with Saudi Arabia. In 2002, the Arab League endorsed the Arab Peace Initiative to solve the Palestine-Israeli conflict. Saudi Arabia had started this initiative. The Gulf Cooperation Council is the name of the organization that was established in 1981 to promote cooperation among the 6 Gulf countries. Oman managed to keep its diplomatic relations with both warring countries and called for an unled solution to the Iraq-Iran war. Al Thani is the ruling family of Qatar. Iraq attacked Kuwait in 1990. Mohammed Morsi was toppled after a military coup in 2013. Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Qatar is the biggest natural gas exporter in the region.